Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today Paul George is going to take a break from podcasting to help the Sixers win a championship. So, as you guys know, Paul George is having an incredibly disappointing season. His first year in Philly, signs this massive contract. They thought, hey, we got a big three now. Sixers are going to be competing for a championship. We know Embiid's going to be on some sort of load management thing. Maxey and Paul George are just going to be cooking when Embiid's out. Well, Paul George is putting up Tobias Harris numbers, some of the worst of his career. It's been incredibly disappointing. And actually, oddly enough, this weekend, Ryan Russillo was on the Bill Simmons podcast. And basically, I think he was kind of half joking, but being half serious, basically said, hey, if I was Paul George and I was doing these podcasts, I would stop doing them with how badly as I was playing because I would personally be embarrassed. Well, Paul George must have either listened to that podcast or someone in his PR team with the Sixers or, in his own personal group maybe said something to him like, hey, Paul, maybe it's time to take a break from the podcast. And that's exactly what Paul George decided to do. And he made the announcement on his podcast on Wednesday. This will probably get put out Thursday, that he is going to quit podcasting for a little bit to help the Sixers win a ring. So we'll go ahead. I'll show you guys what Paul George had to say and his reasoning for taking a break from his podcast, and then we will react to it afterwards.
Fellas, it's no secret this season is up to this point, man. It hasn't been what we envisioned. I know my goal when I first signed with Philadelphia was to bring a championship to these amazing fans here. I still remain positive about that, and that is still the case and where I'm coming from. With that being said, though, I want to let the Podcast P family know that after today's episode with Dwight, I plan to take a break from the pod just to focus on getting my body right, getting mentally right, and, help this squad make a push towards our goal to finish the season out, give ourselves a chance to be in contentions to compete for a championship. I won't front. The desire to get back to shooting in person with my guys as well is the forefront of, this hiatus as well. I look forward to us three being back together and doing this as we once started this. So we'll be back on that note. Be sure to lock in with us because we got some big things in store in our future. In the meantime, y'all be easy. From Podcast P, love and peace.
Okay, you heard it there from Paul George. He did, because I'm recording this after the game on Wednesday, he did have like 25 points. It was his first 20-point game in the month of February. He had like a 2-point game earlier this month. I know he's been dealing with that pinky thing where that seems like incredibly painful, but it seems like at least day one headed in the right direction, but we'll see. I will be honest with you guys. I did do a video about Paul George potentially quitting his podcast the day before he made that video. So it's kind of ironic. So we posted it. We didn't have much people viewing it. So I deleted it and I'm deciding to redo it because we're going to be a little bit nicer here about Paul George. And maybe you might not seem that nice, but we're going to kind of go through some of the most, I think, kind of funny, but also embarrassing things for Paul George so far this season as related to his podcast and some of the things that he said in the media, because I think he's like the one person that, and maybe there's other people, but I feel like his podcast has done, like it's not helped him like at all in his like public image. And I'll go ahead and show you guys. This is probably one of the funnier podcast clips that you'll ever see. So Paul George is talking with his boys on his podcast, and they're talking about, this is like over the offseason, they're talking about Lonzo Ball and comparing him to like LaMelo. And we'll watch this a few times. This is a short little clip, but it's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
What can't Lonzo do?
Ball
Can't stay healthy.
You saying I'm loving?
That has nothing to do with the game.
Yes, it does. That's like saying, like,
You can't say that.
why not?
Look at our boy.
That's like referring to Paul George's health, because that's the thing too about Paul George. He does not get enough crap, and I don't think I think sometimes we're unfair with guys with not staying healthy. But Paul George does not get enough crap for him not staying healthy. Like, I saw a thing the other day, and I believe we talked about it on a video, that Paul George it's probably, by the time most of you guys are watching it, the numbers might be different, but since the 1920 season, so it's like 6 seasons, Paul George, at least about a week ago, had missed more games than Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid gets crap for missing games all the time. Paul George Barely ever. Again, we'll watch this again. This is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
What can't Lonzo
Alonzo
do?
Ball
Can't stay healthy.
You saying I'm loving?
That has nothing to do with the game.
Yes, it does. That's like saying like
You can't say that.
why not?
Look at our boy.
He's just getting roasted on his own podcast. I can't believe it. Hey, you can't say that. You can't say that stuff about injuries mattering. Our boy gets injured a lot. It's his show. Okay, one more time. I gotta laugh at it.
What can't Lonzo
Alonzo
do?
Ball
Can't stay healthy.
You saying I'm loving?
That has nothing to do with the game.
Yes, it does. That's like saying like
You can't say that.
why not?
Look at our boy.
Oh my god. I could watch that for like 10 straight minutes. All right. This is a stat from earlier this month. I'm not sure what the updated numbers are on it, but this is another kind of interesting, kind of sad Paul George podcast stat. Insane stat for Sixers fans. When was this posted? February 7th, so like 3 weeks ago. Insane stat for Sixers fans. Since joining the Sixers, Paul George has uploaded more podcast clips to YouTube, 228, than field goals made, 191. Yes, this is a real statistic. Not sure what it is now. He hasn't been playing that well this month, so it might be the same. Now that he stopped doing his podcast, he might catch up to that. Catch up to those numbers. Another thing I'm going to show you guys here. Do you guys remember earlier this season for the Sixers when they had like the team meeting, and there was like a quote that came out of that meeting? It was reported on that Tyrese Maxey called out Joel Embiid for being late to, quote, everything. And that was one of those things where everyone at the Sixers, a lot of the players were like really mad, especially Joel Embiid, because he's like, how the heck did like that get out? How did that get out? Well, Paul George talked about it on his podcast and got absolutely roasted for the thumbnail that they made. You can see this here. Paul George. Oh, I'll zoom out a little bit. Paul George. You can see the thumbnail here. Players only meeting leak. What's next for Sixers? Paul George gets real on the players only meeting leak. Sixers struggles and more. And you can see Molly Morrison quote tweeting it. Clickbaiting your team's downfall is insane. He's one of the people that's like, as far as his career's gone on, he has just gotten absolutely like worse with like, it's like a lack of like self-awareness of how he is like presenting himself to like the basketball public. And he's just like, these things are just humiliating. You know, some of that stuff, like the stat with the clips and stuff like that, you're probably just posted a bunch of clips. But still, it's still like a sad stat. But what I'm talking about with him just like not having any self-awareness, you know, I know this personally from doing a podcast of my own, obviously, is that you get more comfortable with talking. And I'll even say it like even when I was doing interviews, I don't do as much anymore, but you get more comfortable with talking to different people and asking different questions and figuring out like how to listen. You know, it makes sense, right? If you're doing something more, you're going to like, you know, like get better at it. Well, I think Paul George doing his is a theory I have. Doing his podcast has made him just like more comfortable with just saying things. So this is a real quote. I believe it was like a week or two ago from Paul George. He was asked, which one is it? Right here. Basically asked here. I'll just read it. Paul George was asked if he had any words of wisdom to help Embiid get through his injury struggles. His response: drugs help. Dude. Like a lot of people, a lot of players, the longer they get, into their careers, a lot of them know just kind of give like the nothing answer. And that would have been like, man, like you just got to stay positive. You got to stay focused. You got to keep doing your rehab. You got to, blah, 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 blah. You got to just do that. And then it's like, there's no headline, there's no quotes. It's just in an article. And like only the people that read that article read it, and it's not blasted over Twitter where everyone can absolutely roast you. All right, I got one more to show you guys. So earlier this year, with Embiid being out, Paul George was asked to play the center position a lot. And when he was talking about it in a when he was talking about it in a post-game interview, he had this to say. He said that playing the center is boring and that he's bored playing center. We'll go ahead and I'll play you this clip. Again, another thing of like, dude, like, like you're 34 years old. Like, what are we doing here? We'll go ahead and listen to this.
That position.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. I'm used to scrapping and running around and chasing and fighting through screens. And, you know, to be honest, I'm bored, you know, playing, you know, on a 5, just don't do enough for me. But, you know, I think being mindful of, you know, my ability to clog the middle and kind of help and cut off passing lanes and driving lanes and kind of battle with the bigs, you know, is what Nick sees in that style. But again, you know, I enjoy chasing the little guys and, you know, matching up against, you know, wing defender or wing offensive player.
Dude, we can't make this stuff up. I'm going to go ahead and just show you one more thing here because this is just kind of a pulse. And I could find, guys, I could probably find like 100 of these things, but I got 2 little tweets here that kind of just get you to pull the point of how Sixers fans were feeling about him and his podcast. Paul George needs to podcast full time. Meaning that they don't want him playing basketball, obviously. This other one over here. The Sixers would honestly be better if they had Paul George record a live podcast during games instead of playing basketball. Oh, my God. Again, people are annoyed with it. People are fed up with it. It's not cool. Like, you're not cool. I don't even know who listens. That's one of those things with some of these player podcasts. I'm like, who listens to that? Who's listening to the Pat Bev podcast? And it's like, oh, yeah, Pat Bev's a beast. This is awesome. Love that he throws balls at innocent fans. Oh, boy. Yeah, man. Paul George, hope this works out, man. Hope you find some peace. Hope you keep playing better like you did Wednesday night, because that'd be cool. Would love to see the Sixers actually be relevant, even though I know Sixers fans want them to tank because they want to have the 6-horse record so that they can keep their draft pick. I don't know. The Sixers, for some reason, they keep wanting to compete for a championship this year when all evidence is saying don't. There's a black cat running around your organization this year. You're just unlucky as hell. All right, that's going to do it for this podcast here today. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Number one thing that you can do to help support the show, and it costs you absolutely $0, helps us grow, helps us out in the algorithm. We'll love you forever if you subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment what you thought about this podcast. Do you think Paul George should have kept doing his podcast? Should he ever do his podcast again? Would love to hear you guys' thoughts. So, again, feel free to check out other videos on this channel's page. There might be some other ones that you like. Thank you for watching. Bye.